It's always a pleasure to have an opportunity to come and share a few thoughts on behalf of Governor Snyder and the rest of his team. And we're working hard to really get the message out that Michigan is the most business-friendly state in the country. Now, that's a goal we're striving for, by the way. I won't stand here and say that we're there. But the reality is that Michigan is making an awful lot of progress in becoming one of the best and most friendly business states in the country. If you follow the news, just a couple days ago, the Tax Foundation published their most recent assessments of where states are. And Michigan, believe it or not, when it came to the income tax, Michigan was number 49 out of 50 states. Of course, Steve knows this, being with Raymond. He knows that business taxes in our state were quite high. And under the old, the Michigan business tax, the MEDC'S, very complex. That was actually good for the CPAs because that meant they had a lot more billable hours. It was good for the attorneys. They had a lot more billable hours just trying to figure it out and navigate it. So I don't know if the accounting firms view it as a good thing, but certainly businesses do, that Michigan moved from being number 49 to being number 7. By the way, our goal is to really become a top 10 state. That's probably the best way to characterize what we're trying to do. And because we've been in the bottom of the pack, typically you look at economic metrics, regardless of what it is, whether it's unemployment or business tax, we tended to be in 48, 49, 50, always at the wrong end of the stick, if you will, when it came to business costs and frankly being a business-friendly environment. And so trying to move up is not an easy thing. We were probably as surprised as anyone when the Tax Foundation, they gave us a heads up several months ago that they expected us to make this incredible leap forward. And so we had been anxiously waiting for the final report to come out, and it did here a few days ago. And overall, by the way, it's not just about the business tax, but overall our business tax climate, our business cost climate, we moved up to number 12. So we clearly are on a path to get into the top 10 overall when it comes to being one of the most business-friendly environments there is. And how does that happen? That happens because Governor Snyder and our legislature took some very bold steps in that first term in office to fix some things that were fundamentally broke with respect to business costs in our state. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about that, but because I think we're going to ultimately see the result of that as the weeks and months go by, as businesses continue to invest in our state and continue to grow in our state. You've probably seen some of the big announcements recently with companies like GM, Ford, and Chrysler, our big companies continuing to invest in our state. The smaller companies and supply companies like Bosch and so many others that are likewise continuing to make investments in our state. So it's exciting. But most exciting is what's happening with small and medium businesses in our state. The kind of program that Steve alluded to, Pure Michigan Business Connect, and that's really what I want to spend most of my limited minutes that I have with you to talk about. Pure Michigan Business Connect is a fundamental way of doing economic development that no other state, no other organization like the MEDC has decided to undertake. All of my peers, in fact, we just had our national meeting a couple of weeks ago down in Houston, Texas, and everybody is still doing things the same old way. We in the economic development world think that if we can just give one more tax credit than the other state, one more tax incentive, then we will somehow ultimately win this race. And the reality is that tax credits, while they do serve a purpose, and I'm not here to say they don't. If you give enough of them, ultimately, sure, some things will happen. But you're essentially mortgaging the future. Right? So when Governor Snyder took office, Michigan had almost $8 billion in tax credits on its books. $8 billion. That's a liability that's going to be paid for a long time. In fact, if we do nothing more, we will ultimately pay that off in 2032. That's when those tax credits expire that are on the books right now. Now just imagine if we continued that pattern. That number would just continue to grow and grow and grow, and my kids and my grandkids, and maybe even my great-grandkids, if I'm so fortunate, would end up paying that, and your great-grandkids as well. And so the governor took a very bold step and said, we will get out of the tax credit business. We're going to stop competing on the basis of our ability to offer ever-increasing tax credits. And we're going to go to a very simple system. And we're going to give cash to businesses to the extent that we need to put incentives on the table. Now you may say, wait a minute, cash versus a tax credit, wasn't the tax credit better? The answer is no. Because the tax credits don't require us, or didn't require us, to build into our annual budgets a repayment plan or a budget that would cover those credits. They simply were given, and we worry about them in the future. In order for us to give cash, we actually have to put it in our budget. So for the last 2 years, we've had a $100 million incentive pool, actually a $150 million incentive pool, that we can use to help businesses of all types, whether it's the film industry, a manufacturing company, or a software and IT company, or everything in between. We have a cash incentive pool that we can use to help businesses from an incentive standpoint. But more importantly, Pure Michigan Business Connect is not about how much money the state of Michigan can put into a deal, but it's about understanding what businesses need, right? So we know that a lot of the small and medium-sized companies we run into need all kinds of business services. They need help with human resources, help with legal, help with accounting, and so many other services that are vitally important. And their ability to pay for it in many instances is limited. And so as a result, many companies will go without. And when you go without, you make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, it costs you money. You understand where I'm going? And so we figured out that if we could put together a pool of services and resources that could help businesses, that would be far more valuable than all the tax credits we could ever give. Now the beauty of it is we didn't have any idea at the beginning just how big this pool of services and resources could get. But interestingly enough, it's in the range of $8 billion